I'm Sam from Cultaholic, and this is Graded for Friday Night SmackDown, where I take a look at the show segment by segment and award each little bit of grade from A+ to F. So yeah, this is the first SmackDown since Survivor Series 2020. We had the retirement of The Undertaker. I've just stopped crying, but this SmackDown is chock-a-block with new character development and movement toward where we're going to be going soon in future. So without any further ado, I guess we should just crack on with it. Let's find out what happened. Hit the intro. We kick things off this week with Jey Uso, who comes down to the ring and he's like, you know what, everybody's just talking about The Undertaker since Survivor Series when they should be talking about Roman. He then introduces his, I think he calls him forever number one, Roman Reigns. And out he comes. And when Roman gets in the ring, Jey goes to shake his hand. And Roman just looks down at Jey's hand, looks up at Jey, and then just says, play it. And we see a recap of Jey's team losing at Survivor Series. We see Roman telling Jey off and telling him to just go home. And then we see Jey running in on the main event to help Roman win the match. Roman says to Jey, what were you doing? I told you to leave. I didn't need your help to win that match. He asks him what the problem was, and Jey's like, the team didn't listen to me, man. And he's like, well, the team didn't listen to you because they don't fear you, and that means they don't respect you. And if they don't fear and respect you, they don't fear and respect our family. Roman says to Jey, do you think I'm some sort of wannabe bitch? And then he says that it's his fault that Roman feels that way. He then just simply drops the mic and walks off, and Jey is left in the ring with his thoughts and his emotions, and he's losing his mind. He just doesn't know what to do. He just wants to please his family. He just wants to help Roman, but every single time it's just all falling apart. As Jey's leaving as well, Otis is making his entrance. It's going to be Otis versus Corbin, and Jey brutally attacks Otis with a chair. Now you just leave my boy out of this, alright? I'm going to give this one an A because Christ, the viciousness from Roman Reigns. The things he's doing to Jey, you can see it. It's so obvious that Jey is conflicted. It's just eating him away inside. With Roman acting like he doesn't have any time for Jey, this is sort of an extension of the re-education of Jey Uso's mindset, and he eventually then takes all of the frustrations he was having right there in the ring out on Otis, and this ironically brings him closer to the person that's making him feel this way. We then go to our first match of the night, which is Ziggler and Roode versus the Street Profits. And Ziggler and Roode come out first. They run down Otis a little bit for getting attacked before saying that their laser focus is targeted on the Street Profits tonight. The Profits then emerge. They run down the team of Rugler, make a bit of fun of them. They call Ziggler HBK, and then it's just sort of back and forth, and then we get into the match. The Profits make easy work of the heels early on, with Ziggler getting cut off on a dive attempt after dumping Dawkins to the floor. Ford misses a splash to send us to break, and when we come back, the heels are working him over pretty hard. There's even an almost tag to Dawkins. He almost gets there, only for Ziggler to hit him with a famouser when he's just inches from the tag. I really like that. So Ford's isolated and getting worked over pretty hard here, but he eventually makes it to Dawkins, of course, for the hot tag. Dawkins gets in, takes on both heels at once, and cleans up. He hits that weird twisty neckbreaker thing he does, tags Ford. Ford comes in, connects with the splash, but Ziggler breaks the pin. Among the confusion with the interfering Ziggler still in the ring, Roode is able to roll up Ford and pick up the 3. I'm going to give this one a B. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was very condensed, but it was a hell of a lot of fun. I don't think it was harmed in a sense that there was sort of overly one-sidedness either way here. I think this was pretty much just let's see how this goes, and maybe we can move forward with it. And to be honest, I'd like to see this move forward. We then go to Daniel Bryan, who's being interviewed by Kayla backstage, and she asks him about his strategy against Sami Zayn tonight. He says his strategy is acceptance, and he's got to accept the fact that Sami is now more delusional than ever, but tonight he's going to break those delusions. I think this is where we have the recap of The Undertaker retirement, but that's already been graded in a different video, so let's just gloss over that. We go back to backstage with Kayla, and she's with Ray, Dominic, Aaliyah, and Murphy. Kayla asks if they're thankful for the fact that their feud with Rollins is done and it's all in the rearview mirror, and Ray says that he has a lot to be thankful for, including the fact that Murphy turned on Seth. They're then interrupted by Corbin, who's playing a little bit of a script doctor role here. He's like, one win over Seth Rollins and you're all just a happy family. That's an absolute joke. He runs down everybody, but primarily he runs down Dominic for having no talent, and he runs down Murphy for riding on Ray's coattails. We then go to Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. Sami gets on the mic before Bryan comes out and he starts cutting a promo on Thanksgiving before turning his attention to Bryan. Before he can really say anything though, he's cut off by Bryan as he makes his entrance. When we start the match, Bryan just keeps tying Sami up and Sami's just complaining to the ref. Every single time that Bryan is getting on the front foot and really bringing the attack, Sami's finding a way to get the hell out of dodge. Bryan does dive to the floor though, and Sami is able to use the barricades to his advantage here. Bryan blocks Zayn on the corner and he shoves Zayn just clear to the floor. And then when Bryan's like, okay, he's up against the barricade, I'm going to come diving in, Bryan dives, Sami moves out the way, and Bryan just connects head first, or at least it looks a bit head firsty, into the barricade. Zayn takes charge, but Bryan just won't be kept down. He's got him in the corner, Bryan levels him with a bit of a rana out of the corner, and then things spill out onto the apron where Sami sends Bryan into the ring post before, and seriously, just what the hell? Just he hits a brainbuster on the apron. Just straight up brainbuster on the hardest part of the ring, and Daniel Bryan is out. He looks absolutely cooked, but he makes it back in the ring at like 9.999, and Zayn is just running his mouth here the entire time. It was class. Bryan then gets Zayn into a yes lock, only for Zayn to escape, and then Zayn eats a dive on one side, and then he eats a dive on the other, and then he's like, you know what? Had enough of this. I'm going home. So he just starts walking backstage. Bryan, however, follows him. And then after a couple of seconds of the camera just hovering by the entrance, out emerges Zayn on his own. Referee's been counting all this time. She's like 8, 9, and then Zayn slides back in just before the 10 to pick up the win. It's then revealed, however, that backstage, as Daniel Bryan had gone through the curtain, Jey Uso must have been waiting for him because Jey is just beating the absolute piss out of Bryan. Owens comes flying in to make the save, but Jey's just sort of on him, and then Owens is like, no, I'm going to go after Jey, because Jey tries to make his escape. This was a bit of a brawl, bit of a technical showcase, bit of comedy, and a little bit of genius from Zayn there at the end, just sprinting back down to get in before the 10. I really liked it. I'm going to give it an A. I had high hopes, but of course it didn't disappoint. Look at the caliber of the two blokes in the ring. Really hoping that this is going to lead us to that juicy partnership of Owens and Bryan on a bit more of a full-time basis, for a little bit at least. But yeah, if you haven't watched SmackDown this week and maybe you're not really planning on watching it, this match here was great. We then go to Jey Uso and Roman backstage. Jey's just talking at Roman, and then up pops Kevin Owens, and Owens just gets in Roman's face. He's like, SmackDown isn't your personal little playground, and for somebody who talks so much about how important family is, you sure know how to treat yours like crap. After Owens storms off, Roman looks at Jey and tells him, he doesn't look at me with fear. You need to fix that. Next up, we get Bianca Belair versus Natalya with Bayley on commentary. So the pair go back and forth, but Belair brutally launches herself into the ring post after Natty sidesteps her. So Natty sets to work. I think she's trying to lock up Belair's legs, and Belair just kicks her back, and Natty falls to the outside. Now, on the outside, this is where things get a bit interesting, because Bayley stands up from commentary, and she starts just mouthing off toward Bianca Belair. As Natty and Belair are going back and forth, Natty nearly hits Bayley, only for Belair to come swinging. Natty ducks, and Bayley gets clocked in the mouth. Bayley then tries to get into the ring, and this results in Natty getting rolled up and Bianca Belair picking up the win. But I'm going to give this match a C. It felt a bit stunted throughout, as if we were just kind of waiting for the inevitable with Bayley already there on the outside. You sort of knew something was going to happen here. But to be honest, the opening chain exchanges between the pair of them, where they were just going back and forth, they were great. This pairing, I think, could be capable of making a really nice little pay-per-view match, but in terms of Bayley and the wider story that's going on right now, I guess we just got to wait and see how deep this fascination with Belair is going to go. And now it's time for the weirdest match of the night, and it pits Murphy with Ray, Aaliyah and Dominic on the outside against King Corbin. So Murphy straight out of the blocks is trying speed, but Corbin being so big, he has the size advantage. He's able to just drive Murphy straight back into the corner. And then curiously, it all begins. So whenever Corbin is on the offense, Ray or Dominic or somebody will try try and just interfere a little bit. So it starts with Dominic just jumping up onto the apron, just as innocent as that. He shouldn't be up there, but he's not really interfering, if you know what I mean. Corbin's like, what the hell's going on? He rolls out of the ring, and right in front of him is Aaliyah. And then he complains to the referees, like, they're clearly doing something, like, what's happening here? They're clearly planning something. And at that point, just after complaining to the referee, he's quickly fed to some steps by Murphy. Back in the ring, Corbin hits a deep 6, and then Ray attempts to get into the ring, creating more distraction. Corbin lays in strikes, Dominic up on the apron. Murphy sends Corbin running into the ropes. Dominic grabs the foot. Murphy attempts to pin Corbin. Corbin's foot goes on the rope to break it. Dominic just punches Corbin's foot clean off the rope. 1, 2, 3. Corbin then gets on the mic. He's like, you cheated. He calls them cowards. And then he demands Murphy next week. And he's like, next time I'll be prepared. Now this one gets a question mark because it was just so confusing. Isn't Ray the face? Isn't Murphy the face and Corbin the heel? Why are they just sort of jumping in and what? Corbin is completely in the right to feel cheated, and I for one hope that he absolutely destroys Murphy next week and just batters him and gets his revenge, because this was a load of bollocks. It's confusing behavior, and I guess you could frame it as, you know, they just want to help him get a win. Yeah, that's our adopted Aussie, but their faces, it's so confusing. As well, if Murphy wins again next week clean, it's going to make Corbin look like a massive idiot in like a damaging way, not in like a gimmicky way. We then go to Big E and Apollo Crews, who are stood backstage having a natter when up pops Sami Zayn. And Zayn's just sort of bragging about beating Bryan. He's like, oh, I beat you in a really similar way, didn't I recently, Apollo? Big E then tells Zayn that he has razor thin margins and he's built himself into a house of cards that can be ever so slightly just blown on or tapped and it'll just all come crumbling down. And Zayn's like, well, you're just jealous because, you know, you held this belt a long old time ago and nobody remembers, nobody cares. And then Big E's like, you know what, I commend you. I commend your 10-second victory. And he goes to shake his hand. But when he goes to shake his hand, he crushes the hand and he very slowly counts to 10. We also get another little pop-up of Billie Kay here. She's at commentary this time and she's just sort of looking for a role, as she has been for a few weeks now. We then go to a Carmella promo and she's sat in like a really nice room, she's on a nice chair and she looks like she means business. She calls Sasha out and she's like, you know, I'm going to take that belt, all the standard stuff, but she says, again, I think we've heard this before, she complains about the fans and she says she's through pleasing them. She promises that she's going to take that title and then she clicks for her glass of champagne. One doesn't arrive, however, so she angrily clicks again, and then a hand comes in from the side holding a champagne flute, except it's got the massive boss ring across the knuckles. Carmella, panicked, looks up, sees that it's Sasha, and then Sasha beats her down. They have to get pulled apart by referees and stuff. And now it's time for our main event of the evening, which pits Jey Uso against Kevin Owens. And Jey just looks broken during his entrance. You can just see it in his eyes. He just doesn't know why he's doing the things that he's doing, or what's pulling him toward that sort of behavior. Roman is of course watching pensively backstage, and when the bell rings, Owens is just straight on it. He's not allowing any room for Jey Uso to even just sort of break away. He's trying to just pin him down. So Jey's tossed to the floor, but he manages to throw Owens into the steps, and then back in the ring, he's got like the bottom rope, and he's got Owens' arm, and he's just twisting it round the rope and just really applying as much pressure as he can on that arm. This will become a central theme of the match as well, moving forward. Jey goes for a dive to the outside, but Owens manages to catch him, sending him into the posts and then the barricade. And when we get back in the ring, Jey is just targeting that arm that he twisted up in the ropes. He's dropping knees on it, he's striking it, he's pulling on it, he's doing anything he can to ensure that Owens is only going to have one arm for the remainder of the match. Owens valiantly fights back to his feet, gets Jey into position, almost has the pop-up powerbomb, but his arm gives way. This allows Jey to just plant him with a super kick. And then eventually Jey decides, screw it, and he goes for a chair. The goal here isn't to win, it's to beat fear into Kevin Owens, remember. So it's a DQ finish, but Roman is happy backstage. However, it doesn't last for very long because Uso is dropped with a stunner. Owens then fetches a chair and decides to stare straight down the camera to Roman, who he knows is watching backstage, and he just starts calling him out as he's brutally just laying in chair shot after chair shot across Jey. It was just a lot. Like, it's just bang, 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 bang. It goes on and on. That can't have been very nice at all. After all of this, Roman is just stood there watching angrily. He doesn't want to go down. He doesn't want to involve himself, but he's just stood there watching angrily. Owens even stands on the commentary table at one point. He's like, come on, come down. And then eventually, after he's beaten Jey thoroughly, Owens just pulls up one of the commentary chairs, sits down, and looks down the camera. He's like, come on, one-on-one. I'll be waiting. This gets another A. If there's anybody out there complaining about WWE's lack of character development, you just get them to watch SmackDown at the minute, because Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and everybody around that storyline are killing it. The prospect of an angle involving Roman, Jey, Bryan, and Owens is properly tantalizing. I want that right now. We'd have some of the best in-ring and mic work going, and it would be off the scale. I feel like this is where we're heading, because, Owens has been floating around this situation. Jey's been beating up Bryan. Come on, just please, just even if it's just once, just please. But in terms of an overall grade for SmackDown this week, I'm going to give it an A. How could I not? It was one of the strongest SmackDowns in recent memory, despite the weird Murphy situation and the sort of meanderingly strange setup around the women's match. We had some great matches, some standout promo work, and some potential mega matches up and down the roster. But what did you guys think of this week's SmackDown? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Sam from Cultaholic. This has been Graded for Friday Night SmackDown. Baron Corbin was screwed. And stay safe, I guess, and I'll see you next time.